say one thing right quick before we start on this? It's on?
Yeah.
I just want to say there's 8 reasons you can go into executive session. And it's not because you want to keep stuff from the public and making policy decisions, any of that kind of stuff. I hope that
We've talked about this before. Let's talk about it right now so everybody knows what we're talking about. If the commission is considering policy that has legal ramifications to it, they can go into executive session to discuss that policy from the point of view of getting legal advice on it. You have often said that they can't discuss policy in those meetings. That's not accurate. They can discuss policy if they're seeking legal advice about a policy. They can't make a policy decision,
exactly.
but they can discuss the legal ramifications of policies. So I want to make sure we're clear about that.
Okay, we ready to get going on then? Everything clear? Everybody ready to go? So,
Call meeting order.
yep. So, where do we start? We've got a couple things here we could probably talk about to get started, or Dr. Allen's in a hurry to get going. We can get into what he needs. However you guys want to go.
The meeting, I don't need to jump in, so time for me to jump in, so.
We have some legal issues to discuss regarding the implementation of some of the directives that have come down to us from state and federal and so forth. And I think that's what Dr. Allen is here to discuss, some of the legal issues involved with that, and to get some guidance from me as the attorney and get a feel for what his liabilities are and what our liabilities are. So, if you want to do that first, we can. If you want to do this first.
How much time do you need?
20. To start out, 20.
20 minutes.
I'll make a motion that we go into executive for, is it legally set?
Legal, yeah.
For 20 minutes with, who's on the meeting?
Jay, Doug, you guys, the sheriff, myself.
Jay, Doug, Tisha, and the sheriff for, or Dr. Allen for 20 minutes. That's the motion.
Second.
Move second, all in favor?
Aye.
By the way, I answer anything to do with your head, so. No, I'm not thinking about the titles and things like that.
I assume I'm probably in there too.
Yes.
We could turn some music on and see if you know how to do a waltz up there in front of everybody.
You don't have to turn the music on, I'll tell you I do not.
I don't either, but it sounded really good there for a second. I have no clue either. They tried to teach me to dance more than once. The only dancing I learned was square dancing.
Oh, really?
My wife and I lived up in the Tetons and there was the cold up there.
Yeah.
We went with over the cold there.
Yeah.
They said, come on. So we went through the whole thing.
They say that's fun.
It was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I think you knew when you changed the colors, because you learn, and you get a new color, and it's like, I don't know nothing about another album. Because their voices and the way they did it. It was,
How many, Chris?
how many currently?
Yeah, that's interesting. My husband and I, Barry, and I used to do jig rope kind of that kind of stuff. Swing.
We tried the old, the line dancing, did that stuff, and all that. Square dancing, you had to do it every week to get to pass this course on for half a year. It was fun. Dottie started making her own square dancing outfits. She had all sorts of these dresses from it. The Teton Twirlers.
And where in the Tetons? Where were you?
Grand Teton National Park. I was there for 4 years.
Is that by Jackson? Were you in Jackson? Oh, nice.
That's where we would go.
Yeah. That's awesome.
I see they closed Yellowstone in the Tetons.
Yeah, I saw they closed Great Smoky Mountains. I mean, it just makes sense.
Yeah.
Keep it. Rocky Mountain Park, you close that thing too. It's like a Greyhound bus depot up there.
We had what we called moose jams up there. There'd be a moose by the road, and you would have traffic racked up 10 miles on the side.
Yeah.
Inching by to see it. There was that much traffic in the summer.
Yeah.
Crazy. Just like,
AJ and I we went up to Glacier National Park, and that place was so congested it was just ridiculous.
I don't think I got to go to Glacier.
I want to go back. I
figure one of these years I'll retire. When I retire, I'd like to get in an RV and start at the beginning of my career. All the parks I went to.
Oh yeah.
Follow it around and see how much it's changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that'd be nice.
I went back to Lake Powell. Well, I'd been gone 10 years. I went back and it was like new, big, massive launch ramps.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
They had the zebra mussel. So then they built, since I left, all these massive inspection stations. Every boat coming in, they go through it, steam clean them.
Wow, yeah.
It's like, wow, I went this way when I was there.
Yeah.
You could go get on the boat out Lake Kennesaw at night, day and night.
I lived in Phoenix for 8 years, and we'd go up to St. George and that area.
See, I was in Lake Powell, Bullfrog. You probably heard of Lake Powell and Bullfrog.
Yeah, yeah. Like Havasu.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was nice. I didn't believe anything there. It was nice. But, Sudoku game the other day. It's pretty entertaining.
Sometimes you get addicted.
Yeah. so we can spray it on.
It just gets right to you, though.
And then the next thing we've all sanitized too much. I got a little something. No, I have some. Oh. No, I've been tasked with protection. From. Yeah. Yes, but it's good. Yeah, no problem.
I can see them all.
Oh, did you? Yeah. Oh. He did what?
I have another copy of the thing we're discussing.
We just started in this organization, the next school, and we have all our heads of the different organizations.
What is our,
The other discussion.
what kind of,
From around here, we would consider that one of the
what
correct.
are our,
And I said, well, if you wanted to insult me, you call it political Okay. Okay. Super good.
Dr. Allen, are you going to speak up here at all?
I would be happy to. If you got questions about science or things that what makes sense.
Would you?
I'd be happy to answer any questions you have, and
Okay.
if I feel like that we shouldn't answer them, I'll ask them.
I'm sure there's a few people online now watching, so. I don't know if there's any updates you want to give or any advice you want to give, first of all.
Yes, advice is pay attention to what the scientific people are telling you. This is not a hoax, this is real. There's a 30-year-old died in St. Louis 2 days ago, I believe. This is not just a disease that kills old people. This is a disease that does not discriminate. The scientists are trying to keep ahead of it. It's not going to happen, but we're going to slow it down at least. I think most people are familiar with the flattening of the curve. The last I read, there's 162 ventilators in the entire state of Kansas. This hits Linn County hard. We could use nearly all those ventilators if it hits hard. If we slow it down, we slow it down. And that's just one small county, that potentially could use all those ventilators. We got to slow it down. We got to slow it down. Otherwise, we're going to end up being like Italy. The thing that Doug and Tish and I have bounced around since the beginning of this, which I believe our first meeting was March the 2nd. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
About this, wasn't making any of the newspapers then. If everybody feels a little bit of pain, nobody feels a lot of pain. And we're asking everybody to bear with a little bit of pain that we're asking you to feel, because we're asking everybody to feel a little bit of pain in the hopes that nobody feels a lot of pain. The science behind this is important. It's important for some decisions that you guys make at the courthouse. It's important for businesses to make decisions. The average onset of symptoms from exposure is 5.2 days. So I'm aware that some businesses have chose to go every other day with employees. Makes no scientific sense. None. Because if you're staggering your employees and they're there for 5.2 days before they know they're sick, they've got everybody in the courthouse. So if you're going to do a staggered schedule, use the science of 5.2 days before symptoms. It can be up to 9 days. Can be up to 9 days, but the average onset of symptoms for adults is 5.2 days. So instead of staggering days, stagger weeks. It makes a lot more scientific sense. Courthouse needs to stay in function. Cities need to stay in function. These government entities that we have to have functioning have got to use some science for their decision making. And I will help you. Tish and Doug will help you. We can recite the science in our sleep. We've looked at it so much. 5.2 days from the onset of symptoms. So use that to make your decisions. Other questions?
None for me.
So, in our initial report, water services are essential. So anybody that's taking care of water, that becomes real essential. And the employees that work at water is real essential. The people that are manning the phones at the courthouse, that we call when we got an emergency, it's real essential that we're doing good taking care of our employees there. And that we're using the good science behind taking care of these people, because you lose one, it's going to hurt. You lose half your staff, you're losing the ability to respond. So there's some big decisions that need to be made, and that goes for every business that wants to stay open. They've got to make some big decisions.
You want to talk about what business you're following essential as of right now?
Well, we didn't call business. Well, yeah, no, we did call businesses essential. The way we tried to define essential businesses was that you have to have it to live, or you have to have it to keep an animal alive. Because some people's livelihoods are keeping their pigs alive, or their cows alive, or their chickens alive, or whatever. And that dead animal can't happen. They've got to have it to either keep themselves alive or the business. So ag businesses, we don't want people gathering in the ag businesses. They're essential. They didn't make the essential list. We're going to try to keep them open business as usual, but they're essential. We can't let cows die. We can't let pigs and chickens and somebody calls out a crocodile the other day. Well, that crocodile's got to eat. They're not going to sell him, I don't think, but he's got to eat. So we don't want the crocodile to die. But even to crocodiles, we've got to keep those animals alive. We can't ask people to choose between violating the law and killing the pet or killing the cows. You know, it's, so we want the laws to be such that people can comply but continue to live. Everybody feels a little bit of pain, nobody feels a lot of pain. So essential, the first step of the essential was you gotta have it to live. Food, water, gas to get to work if you're an essential employee, and that was about it.
Has the state issued a list of essential, what they consider essential?
Has the state, I'm not aware that the state has issued a list, as of
I
yet.
don't think so.
Have they? Okay, Joe can help.
Yesterday, the governor signed 2 executive orders. One was for the no more than, or you can't have 10 or more people.
Sure.
So it's 9 basically. So that kind of trumps our 10. We said you could have 10. Governor's now said you can't have 10 or more at a gathering. So her restrictor policy beats ours, if you will, or supersedes ours. The other thing they did is give some guidance on doing stay-at-home orders and what they consider to be essential businesses, and they put out a whole 2.5-page list. What it does is tell us everything we cannot shut down.
Right.
What it doesn't do is list them as the hardware store, the gas station, the grocery store. The descriptions are very nondescript. So we will be working over the next day or two to try to make sure we're not shutting something down that she has said you cannot shut down.
Sure.
But we got to interpret because it's not just plain and simple and easy to read. Some of the descriptions are very vague. So
Does she have a description on if your business is still, if your storefront business is still open, what practices you have to do to stay open?
as I recall, and it might have been in the 10 person executive order that she did, but in one of those it kind of describes some exemptions and some things, but it also talks about you have to be able to maintain the less than 10, and you have to be able to maintain the 6-foot social distancing requirements. But that's specific to certain things. We've got to go through and process all that. It came out late yesterday evening. We've been working on other things, which I can brief you on later once she's done. But she has come out with that, and we are looking at that to make sure that we do not violate her executive order that says you cannot shut down certain business types.
So, and you'd be surprised that some are considered essential.
Yeah, so basically what we've tried to do is make it where people can stay open, but not violate what we consider the law. Another example of what we did a week ago, now somebody else is catching up, and they may catch up and make it less strict or more strict. You know, it's, our original order was gatherings of 20, CDC came out the next day and said gatherings of 50, and the White House came out 2 days after the CDC and said gatherings of 10. So we were in the ballpark, you know, with our original order. And this is a fluid situation. There's a lot of people that, you know, can change this. Our goal is to not shut anybody down. But we recognize that this is a very heavy virus that lives on surfaces. So gyms, for example, you can maintain the 6 feet social distancing. But it's a very heavy virus that lives on surfaces for a long time. 3 days, I think, Tisha, for steel.
Yes.
Isn't that correct? So you got to shut the gyms down. There's no possible way that they can make sure that they clean that treadmill or that elliptical or that Smith machine between each person that uses it. So you've got to shut them down, even though you can maintain social distancing. They can't do it. Barbershops and hair salons, they can't maintain social distancing. The nature of their business is to be in your space. They have to be in your space to do the job. So, but anything that was able to maintain social distancing, we wanted them to give them ideas on, okay, try to do this. Keep your business open, but change your business. Be smart about how you're doing your business. If you don't have to have them in your store, don't have them in your store. If they can call ahead and give you an order and you can leave it at the curb or deliver it to their house, do that. And it's not just important for the businesses, it's important for their customers, and it's important for the community that they do this. And so, we gave an example, I'm not going to mention it by name, of a business. I'm sure that it probably hurts a little bit. But this is not going to be something that's gone in a week. This is going to be something that if they do it and figure it out and be smart, they're going to survive this wave, whether it's 2 months, 3 months, whatever it is. Because it ain't going away in a week. And so, Some optimistic people think it's gonna be gone by Easter. I'm not near that optimistic. And so,
Mikey, anything?
I do not. I was gonna ask kind of a rough timeline, but I noticed that everybody asked the same question, and that's what I'm saying, I mean, it's not a 2-week deal. I mean, I think everybody's batting down for a couple weeks.
once we see the numbers locally double, then you can start with a fairly rough timeline. And once you see that numbers double, it's gonna be a month. Until you see that number double, it's not hard to predict. And the better that Tisha and Doug, with my advice, do, the longer it's gonna be before we see that number double. So if we do a good job, this may be a 3 or 4 month thing. If it gets ahead of us, instead of us, and we've stayed ahead of it up to this point, and at least in my opinion, we've stayed ahead of it up to this point. If we stay ahead of it, we keep that number from doubling, and it's gonna be 3 or 4 months, you know, unless somebody kills it, which we don't know if it does or doesn't. And maybe we should be praying for a hot, dry summer, because that may do the trick. But if it gets ahead of us, it's gonna hit hard.
That's about it for us, I think, Dr. Allen. You're welcome to stay.
Jackie Messer, Mike had a question while Dr. Allen's still here.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy to sit around and tell you.
If he did, I just sent him a message, I think he's in the other room, but he hasn't answered yet.
Tisha and Doug, you guys got anything you want to add to
I
all
can
this?
just give you an update on case count, and we're at 6
Sure.
cases right now. 6 cases, and they've all been linked to travel or someone associated with travel, so,
Can you give us a number of how many you're testing a day on average?
So KDHE has restricted down their guidelines for us
Okay.
and our capability of testing. So today we did not test any, but we did refer them for testing through their primary care doctor. That number is increasing, and I anticipate that number to continue to go up.
Testing.
Do you want to give, since we're live in our live feed, do you want to give kind of an update of, you know, the process of, you know, if you should go and get testing to be shown, or, you know?
So we do have several in quarantine, and we are doing active monitoring on those people. If they become symptomatic, then we are, depending on their symptoms, because for us to test KDHE, they have to be associated with healthcare, they have to be over the age of 60, they have to be perhaps in like a long-term care facility. There's stricter guidance for that, for us to do it. But anybody with symptoms, if they have symptoms and aren't able to go for testing, we are recommending that. If they're not able to go or don't want to go for testing, and they have had an exposure, then we are telling them to just remain in quarantine or shelter.
They can find the number to call and everything on, it's been shared on Facebook, correct? Your
The-
website, and
The 913-795-7302 number?
that's it. And
Yes. And then today our vulnerable population registry was, I think, in the newspaper and then on our website. So, and then we also, the state's got a little bit of a delay with their case counts, and so we've been working with Chris, and he's putting our updates on for our county. So,
I think you can find that on websites, Facebook.
LinnCountyKS.com, our Facebook pages, Linn County, Kansas, Linn County Emergency Management, Linn County Health Department, Linn County Sheriff's Department. Is that it?
I've seen it floating around a lot, and you do an awesome job, and thank you.
Jack does not want to come in, he said he didn't have anything that he needed tonight, so.
So I thought what Tisha was talking about quarantine orders, and Tisha's done an excellent job at appropriate quarantine for the appropriate patients. People that are in very high risk occupations have probably a potentially stricter quarantine order. for example, somebody has access to multiple people at the courthouse, you guys need to be very diligent with the quarantine orders. And if they've got a potential of exposure, you do not want that you don't want them bringing that to work. And so people that, you know, they're a farmer and they work out in the fields and they have very little contact with people, probably a little lighter on the trigger, you know, with them, as far as the downstream impact, you know, that they'll have. But you gotta look at places like schools, courthouse, city businesses, and I know some people that have been asked to be quarantined, and it's because of their occupation, because of what they do for a living. And I think that's smart. And Tish and I have talked about a couple of those, and I think she's made very smart decisions with that. Not just looking at the individual, but also looking at that downstream impact of, if that individual does have it, what impact are they going to have? And we don't want this going through the courthouse like crazy. We don't want it going through any city halls like crazy. And there's certain businesses, you know, schools and such, that we just don't want it in. So she's been very smart and asked the right questions and made the right decisions, in my opinion. So.
And with that being said, you know, KDHE has their requirements for quarantine. We have a little more stricter. That's what we get through when we do the interview questions and things like that. That if you've traveled to a place where there's community transmission, but it's not on the KDHE, then we look at that and we then do more questions in regards to their contacts with the public. So.
Okay. Is there anything you guys advise is like that the community can do together to help out anybody that's in need? I mean, is there anything? Do you suggest?
We're working on
We're currently working on that. That was the briefing I was going to give you. We are working on plans. We've got a system that Tish has put together to identify high-risk individuals, vulnerable populations. David's helped with getting some of the information on that. We will be soliciting that information so we can identify those folks. 60 and above is high risk. Below 60 with health conditions, which is heart disease, lung disease, diabetes,
and immunocompromised.
Immunocompromised. So anybody that's in one of those categories can fill out this vulnerable populations. We'll have a list. We'll kind of know who those folks are. The sheriff has been gracious enough to volunteer his folks to do some food or medical deliveries if we get to a point where we have a stay-at-home order, or for those folks who we have to quarantine, so that if they need something, obviously, we don't want them to come out. If they need something, and we're working on the logistics of it with our stores, but in some form or fashion, they will be able to call this single phone number that we have. Chris has got it set up to where it will hold them. If you want COVID information, you press 1. If you want vulnerable populations registry, it's 2. Food will be 3. Trash collection will be 4. And we've got it set up to where we can accommodate those things. We're getting it set up so that if we have to bring it online, it will be ready. But he's working with his whole staff to make sure we can get food, medicine, medical equipment, things like that to our people that are in a quarantine, or for some of our high-risk people that have no one to help them. So if somebody is a high risk, they're 65, 70 years old, they live by themselves, they don't really have any family around, we're setting it up to where he will be able to go out and assist those folks through a process. I talked to one of our grocery stores already. The manager, the other wasn't in today, but we're working with them to get their buy-in and assistance with it. And then he's going to be reaching out to them tomorrow to try to set up the specifics. Jackie Messer has agreed to use his folks to do trash collection because, again, those people are going to generate trash. If they're in quarantine for 2 weeks, they have no way to get rid of it. So we're setting up to go around and take care of that. If we have a 30-day stay-at-home order, now we're looking at 30 days instead of 15. So all those things are happening in the background. We hope that we don't have to use it, but if it gets to the point of issuing a stay-at-home order where we're forced into that, we're trying to lay the groundwork to make sure we can take care of our citizens and meet the needs that they will have over the long haul. And then we're working with our stores, talking to them, talking to the owners, managers, trying to get them to think about things. What happens if part of your staff is unable to come into work? Can you keep it open? be thinking about plans, how we would do that, because there's key critical infrastructure for us to be able to keep the system working. And we're trying to reach out to those folks, our water districts, we've talked to them, and working with plans with our rural water district 13 specifically. I've been talking with Erica Kern at the city of Pleasanton, their administrator. They've got their folks doing some things, so that hopefully if one employee gets taken out somewhere, we don't lose the whole staff of the facility on these critical structures. So.
Well, Doug and Dr. Allen mentioned the possibility at some point in the future of a stay-at-home order, and other places have had to do that. In preparation for the unfortunate likelihood that should happen, you be sure you read this executive order number 20-15. You can find it online. Easy. It lays out what's called the essential functions framework for campuses. And it
Yes, that's the executive order. If you look, I didn't have it with me, but if you look at the back 2 pages, that's where it describes the types of businesses that we can't shut down. If I could borrow that from you.
It's fairly complex, but it would be very useful for you guys to have an understanding of it, because you'll understand what's happening then among the businesses, and you'll hear from them.
Provide funding and liquidity services, provide wholesale funding. I'm just going to read a couple of them. Provide metals and materials, research and development. So that's just generally speaking, that's how it's described in here. So we're going to have to go through that and try to equate that to, is that a hardware store or a farm supply, or what are they actually talking about?
They basically break down all the functions into 4 categories of functions: provide, transport, I can't remember what the others are.
One of them is supply, that's the fourth one, I don't remember what the third one is.
But there's 4 categories of functions, and then they talk about which ones are essential within those categories. And then you have to determine if your particular service, which category it fits into.
We're prohibited, the way I read that document, we're prohibited from shutting down anything that's in one of those 4 categories, if I understand it correctly.
I would not go so far as to say you're prohibited. There are restrictions on what you could restrict. It sounds like double talk. There are prohibitions against complete shutting down.
And that's what we're going to have to go through a process to try to figure out. We set out some what we felt were essential, because we reached out to the state. The state does not have a list. They have no list that says hardware stores or appliance stores, and this one's in this category, that one's in that one. So we sat down and kind of worked through it on our own, and then we got this from the governor's office. But it's not just straightforward, this type of store, this type of store. So we're going to have to sit down and try to interpret it over the next few days.
So the science behind this, and the real world, where science meets real world, is the intention is not to shut anybody down. And not being labeled essential does not mean not important. It does not mean the power plant is not important. The power plant is not essential to you eating, drinking, or feeding your animals, but it's important. And so we started talking about this on March 2nd. Started preparing for phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and it got on us quicker, but we were actually ahead of this. Looking at the Johnson County order, I think our list is better. I mean, they just labeled everything essential, and what was not essential, they just didn't put on the list. We broke it down a little bit better, and I think put it, and Tisha, am I right? We put ours out on March 22nd.
I don't remember the date that we put it out.
I think it was March 22nd, but my memory could fail me. They put theirs out on March 22nd. And so we tied them exactly on when we put ours out. And we listed it. Now, is it easier to do it for a county of 9,000 than it is a county of 600,000? Oh yeah, that's easier, to do it. But, they were community-wide spread when they put theirs out. We put ours out ahead of that. And so there's been a lot of thought into this, and the thought is, how do we keep businesses open but not let them get sick? What can we do to pick a business that we don't have sick people going into their business? Locking the doors lets them control who comes in and who comes out. It lets them do a little questionnaire. Hey, you've been to Florida lately? You know, before they come in your business. Hey, you know what? I'm going to deliver this at home. It's, you're not coming in. And so, and the business people that I've talked to, most of them have appreciated being able to lock their doors. I can't lock my doors. I can't. Somebody could come in and wipe out half my staff. You know, just one fool comes in coughing all over, leaving germs everywhere, but not just my staff, the patients that go there, they can't. So there's certain businesses that we just can't lock their doors. There's other businesses that we don't want to lock their doors, but we can give them some tools in place if they choose to use them and use them correctly that will limit their exposure, that takes care of them, their families, their staff, and their customers. So I know I've said that a couple different times. This is real important. We don't want to close anybody's doors. And there's not one of us that's really talked about that, hey, I think we need to close the doors. We may have to, but most of the time I think we're going to figure out adequate restrictions that will let them keep their doors open.
Got it. Kevin, you've been very quiet. You guys talk.
I know, as Douglas explained, I mean, we're working on some food delivery, medication delivery, and things like that. Our staff's all coming together and taking care of those issues. So I think, you know, proceeding here in the next few days will be successful, and I think everything's looking really good. So.
Is our city police department has come out to you, talk to you about any issues about this, or wanted any guidance that you may have?
We've been in contact with them because, you know, right now we're changing the way things are working in the jail and things like that. As far as if we do bring somebody to jail, how's that going to be done? How does that look? You know, what processes do we have to go through to assure, to the best of our ability, for right now, what is the health of the, you know, the arrestee that's coming in? So we've all communicated about that, and I think everybody's on page with that now. And you know, anytime we have change, there's always a little bit of resistance, and you know, how does that look to get there? So I think we're through that, and you know, we're working. Everybody's really working together well. So we have a total realization that it's a community-wide effect. No matter if in the county or in the city, the effects are still really the same for the folks that we're dealing with. You know, we had, today we met and kind of ironed out some of the things that we're going to be doing and how we're going to be doing it, and Jackie's in that as well. So, you know, I think everybody's on the same page. We're all working together, and I think that's what this is going to take.
Good. AMR is not here, of course, and I think AMR is very important to you guys as well. And I guess they've reached out to you, or you've reached out to them and talked to them continuously. And being a national organization, they're pretty well run organization. So.
I'd like to throw out for AMR. I mean, they've offered us some services for assistance in our fit testing and some things like that for our PPE. So, you know, I've talked to Galen several days this week, and we email back and forth all the time. So, I mean, as far as the way they're working with us, that's really seamless, and they're offering assistance, quite frankly, that's above and beyond. It's stuff they don't have to do, but they're making sure we're getting things taken care of.
Okay.
One more thing I'd mention to you, and I'll post it in the morning, but Jessica Hightower and Linda Simons, my planner, are working to get, or try to get every business in the county to provide us with contact information, including an email, so that as we move forward, we can push out any information and try to make sure they get it as soon as it comes out. In addition to that, I asked Jessica today if she would review the Small Business Administration loan, its application and its process, because the state of Kansas is now eligible for those, and I plan to post it in the morning to the folks on Facebook, but our small businesses will be able to reach out to her. She's graciously agreed to review all that, be prepared, so that if a business in our county has a need or a question, she can hopefully direct them to what they need to do to get some type of assistance. So,
That application is online right now, isn't it?
yes, it's the Kansas Department of Commerce.
Yeah.
Correct. But she's kind of researching it for us and trying to make sure that she understands and knows about that process, and then we'll refer our businesses to her so that she can handle that. And again, it just, like I say, Kevin took over the medical and food delivery issues, and he and his department are setting it up. That just takes more off the Tissue Nice plate and allows us to do more of the things that we've been doing and working on. A lot of times there's a CDC briefing at 10 a.m. There's a Kansas Division of Emergency Management at 1, usually lasts an hour, hour and a half. There's a 3 o'clock KDHE briefing every day. There's a 5 o'clock Kansas Division of Emergency Management briefing every day where they're trying to answer questions, they're going over stuff. Usually in the afternoons, by the time you start the 1 o'clock briefing until 6 or 7 o'clock at night, we're in briefings and we might have a 20 or 30 minute gap in between each of the briefings because they're lasting. Shortest ones are about an hour, most of them are an hour and a half, where the state's trying to give us device, answering questions, we can ask them questions. And for, I don't know about KDHE, but for KDM, it's 7 days a week. They're doing briefings 7 days a week at 1 and again at 5 for us. So we're trying to stay up with all that. David's helping us with some press releases and information. We're trying to put information out. We're trying to build documents as we need them or in advance of when we need them so they're ready to push out. So we're trying to get all this done so the people that are willing to take some of that portion of the pie, Jackie Messer and his folks, that is one thing, they're taking it, they're managing it, they're taking care of it. So that just takes it off our plate and then we don't have to worry about trying to manage that. So I really appreciate that from all of them. Very, very helpful.
Couple of things we passed out here this evening. One of them's on the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. This is from the federal government. It's kind of an extended FMLA leave is basically what it amounts to, but it lists some federal requirements that we're going to have to follow. We can do more for the employees than what the feds are requiring if we want to do that. So we wanted to get that in front of you so you've got a chance to look through it. Maybe we can talk about it a little more Monday. But Cindy and Amanda worked on this quite a bit yesterday and today, and they've come up with, I think the way you're approaching it is, here's what the requirements are, here's what we're proposing that we do for Linn County, and here's the reasons why. So if you guys can look through that, we can talk about it, but we at least have to meet those federal requirements, and some of that is if you're quarantined at home in the first 2 weeks, you're going to be at full pay. That was for our expenses. Then you can go to a 2/3 pay for up to 10 weeks after that. And there's a lot of other things that go to it, but please read through that before we get back together again so we can work on that. I don't, Gary, I was talking about the Families First Act a little bit. And like I said, we have to at least meet the standards that the federal government's setting in that, but we have some options on it if we want to do more than that. So that's kind of what we tried to lay out in that document for you is options we might have or some ideas on what we could do.
And it technically, you probably explained, technically goes into effect on the 1st, although we're supposed to the extent we can, comply with it before the 1st.
Yeah. And I know Cindy and I were talking on a conference today that some counties have adopted a plan and made it retroactive for the last couple of weeks. And so, I mean, there's some things like that we can do, but for sure by next Tuesday, it's got to be in place.
So, I mean, since this is such an abnormal time for everybody, should we probably put in place to maybe meet more than once a week for a briefing, just so the community can keep up, we can keep up with.
I don't know. I mean, if you want to, obviously you can. We could send briefings out to you as long as we're not asking for a response without having a meeting. I mean, there's no problem at all doing that. It's what we get into a problem with open meetings is if we're sending you a bunch of information and asking for responses back, and we can't do that without having an open meeting. I don't know if we're at a point where we need to meet more often now. I mean, obviously we had a special tonight, and you can call a special meeting whenever you want. You just got to have time to notify the newspaper, and then I've got one other person on the list that's asked for notifications.
I'd say for me, I think they do. We support you guys 100%, and on you guys' decision. You guys have been working your tails off, and we appreciate it. Do you guys see it necessary to have?
It's gonna be hard to predict.
Yeah.
And I think it has the potential of, it's on the wrong day, we needed to have it a day sooner,
So just kind of,
or we didn't need to have it for 2 more weeks. It's gonna be hard to predict.
so just call them as we need it. Easier.
I don't think you have any other choice.
I think the Facebook is a big hit, one way or the other. Yeah. But it's being used, and
There's a lot of hits on those
Yeah.
pictures.
So you gotta make it clear with everybody, so just a live stream of, so you're not getting hit like that on Facebook, that, you know, nothing's gonna be shared. I mean, the info, anything like that, I mean, with the people that's tested positive, I see you get a lot of hits on that.
Well, that's come down from even KDHE legal
Sure.
counsel, so we are not gonna release that information,
Right.
especially the towns, let alone any other demographical information regarding the patient due to the privacy of the, health information.
I've seen a lot of people really getting on the emergency management page and just,
It makes no scientific, there's no scientific reason to share that information. There's none, there's zero. You know, a lot of Linn County doesn't live in a city, so you can't lose it, you know, and it's, and people really need to react like it's out there, and people, we don't know it's out there. There's no scientific reason to know the person that has it, because they're already under quarantine. And so, there's no reason for the public to know that information. The downstream effect of that is that could ruin the community.
Yeah.
That could ruin businesses in the community. If, and right now we have 3 different communities that are involved, and that could change people's behaviors for the worse, and that they don't shop in a community that they usually support, or they think I'm safe when you're not really safe. And you think, well, there's no many outbreaks in Cadmus, so I'm going to shop in Cadmus. And it's, and I use Cadmus as an example.
It's back there.
Yeah. So they think they're safe when they're really not safe.
Right.
And so there's no scientific reason for that information to go out.
so just follow the rules.
The other document that was handed out there is a statement or letter, however you want to look at it. And I think probably some of the reasoning behind that is, you know, we're obviously dealing with all our county departments, different elected officials, department heads. A whole lot of those people really don't understand the incident command system and how things work and how things change when we're under a disaster declaration. And I think that's just an attempt to try to explain that there's probably going to be some changes. You know, you may be asked to do things that are not in your normal job description. Some things are going to come through public health officer or through incident command that are going to need to be done. And I think it's just trying to get that information out to them. And I think it would be helpful for us that are dealing with this on this side if you guys would approve signing that and sending it out to all the elected officials and department heads.
what do we call this?
And
It's a statement of not intent, a statement of policy from the board to clarify to the employees
I think this may have been the
evolving nature of the current
And
situation.
this letter is dated 25 March 2020. I'll make a motion that we sign this.
I'll second. Move and second, all in favor?
Did you get a copy of that, Jack?
Yeah.
I did. You have a copy of it.
I do. I've got 2 or 3 more. All right, I don't have my seal actually with me tonight. I will go ahead and sign that and seal it and get it out to all the departments.
I don't remember that.
Is there anything else anybody wants to share, talk about the community now?
I think that what we're doing is great. Everybody's coming together and working as a team and helping each other out. And I praise you guys as leaders and commissioners in supporting what we're doing because our job is to protect the community. So
Thank you.
I want to say thank you.
You become very popular in the county. or unpopular, whichever.
Okay,
If they didn't know we had a county health department, they know now.
they do, you're right.
The Facebook page is being very popular, and do you want to make any statements of the public that says that there's probably a point in time that comments are,
Time of day.
it's not a political platform to air opinions about the federal government or the state government or.
The local government, or we're just trying to give them information and answer questions. And some of the content on it has gotten to the point that I have restricted folks' ability to comment in as much as I can. We want to give them information. We want to keep them informed. If they have good questions, we would like to answer them. Obviously, we've told them time and time again, we are not going to tell you where the person's from, who the person is. That's information that's not going to be there, and there's no point in asking for it, demanding it, getting insulting because it's not being provided. I understand people have differences of opinions, but we're trying to provide them facts. We're trying to keep them informed, and we just don't appreciate getting browbeat or cursed at and some of those things that are happening.
That ain't something you have to do. You do that just to help the community, correct? I mean, that's.
We set it up years ago just to provide information. We've always tried to, in the past, our biggest thing until this was, hey, we got severe weather coming. It's going to be here on Friday. Friday morning, hey, they're still saying it. When the storms start, we start kicking out information. Here's what the radar looks like. Here's where the storm's at. Here's what's happening. Oh, hey, it's a tornado warning. You need to do something now. So we've always tried to do that so that the public that has a desire to look at it can stay informed up to the minute of what we know as best we can. But it's becoming difficult because I don't have time to go through and try to screen 200 comments to something, half of which shouldn't have been posted to start with. And that's just taking time to go hide them because I want this site to be open to everyone. And if a 12-year-old wants to go to that site and look at it, they shouldn't have to see some of the content that's being posted right now.
Doug, is there a time of day that you post?
We post throughout the day.
Throughout the day, so just check it whenever. Okay.
We start usually around 8 o'clock in the morning, or whenever we get started, we start putting information out. And over the weekend, I was still putting information out at 11, 12 o'clock at night, just trying to answer questions for people and do stuff.
And we're typically sharing any of those posts on the county Facebook page, with Doug's posting on the emergency management page most of the time, and then we'll pick them up and I share it on my own page from there, just trying to get that information out to everybody we can.
Sheriff's put it out on his page. Tish has got the public health web or Facebook page, so we're putting it out on all of our available platforms, trying to get as many people as possible to know what's going on and to keep them informed. And we'll continue to do that. I'm just going in now and just hiding all comments, and no matter what they are, good or bad, we're just trying to shut it down so that we don't get some of the content that we've had.
Well, thanks. Thanks for everything, for everybody.
And here's just one more thing to think about, and we're not at this point right now. We're all working in the courthouse. We're not letting the public in, but we're working. I was on a conference call with the Secretary of State this afternoon, and he said that under Homeland Security, elections are considered critical infrastructure. So even if we get to a point where the courthouse doors are locked and people aren't working in there, me and my election staff is going to have access to that office, because that's the only way we can get on the voter registration system. We can't do it from anywhere else. So we'll have to figure out how to make that work if we ever get to that point where we're keeping everybody out of the building.
Okay.
Well, anybody got anything else?
I want to thank you guys for everything you're doing. I know you're working a crazy amount of hours and you got a lot of stress. And take care of yourselves and your family, and I appreciate everything you do. I really do. And good advice. And we're not experts at this, so it's paramount that we know what you're thinking and what's going on, and we appreciate you keeping us in that loop. So I always support your efforts. Thank you.
I'll make a motion we adjourn.
I'll second. Moving second. All in favor?
Aye. Here, Central Board.
You bet.
Hey, Chris,